healers, what's going on? It's Breacher, and we're looking at the Holy Paladin today. Every single raid in the world wants a Holy Paladin. That must mean they are doing their job, right? Yes, they are. They are doing damn fine all over the place. So you might be considering you want to play a Holy Paladin. Perhaps you've had a Rep Paladin, perhaps you've been tanking or whatever, and now you're thinking, you know what? I want to give healing a try, but how do we get into healing? I will try and guide you into the basics of getting your healer sorted and getting underway and making sure you're the kind of guy people want to bring along to their raids, and then you can start learning properly, and we'll look at some advanced stuff later. There's also a gameplay video which goes along with this. I recommend you check it out, as we'll be talking more about the ideas of healing. Healing isn't something that we can give a priority list to, a rotation, or whatever people want, and therefore a lot of people turn away from a healer like, yeah, I can't really write down what I need to do specifically, and it's an ever-changing dynamic environment in which the healers live, and therefore you need to be able to adapt to that and change. It is one of the most unique roles in the game. It's absolutely fantastic if you get a grip on it. And it also can be very, very rewarding if you actually start playing your healer to its real crucial stage of where it's actually pulling off incredible things and other healers are being left in the dust. Then you can certainly be that guy that can look upon yourself with a little bit of pride and stand out, because it's not about the HPS. So, 2 playstyles you're going to need to get used to for now. I say for now because in Blackrock Foundry, our raid tier sets will appear, as will our tier set bonuses. And if they remain the same, it's probably going to push you one way and leave the other in the dust. But for now, you have a choice of a couple of playstyles, which I think is always nice. So let's go over both of them and see how you play out. So first of all, let's look at your talents. Speed of Light, generally the go-to for healers. You want to move as little as possible, and if you do have to move, you want to move as quickly as possible. The only thing we can cast while moving is Holy Shock and Sacred Shield. Therefore, they're not super powerful, as you can probably imagine, so we want to move as little as possible. We usually only move if we're getting to somewhere we need to be, like a green mushroom, say, on Brackenspore, or we're studying something really bad, like Mind Fungus on Brackenspore, for example, and therefore we need to move very, very quickly, so generally Speed of Light. Fist of Justice, it doesn't really matter here. I tend to use Fist of Justice purely because a nice long-range stun of something that nobody else is interrupting, yeah? If you're going to be doing some random content, which we all do on time to time, or you're learning this as an alt, you're likely to be doing some LFD, LFR, or whatever it might be, and therefore being aware that the rest of your group probably isn't playing optimally. Yeah, Fist of Justice is just so damn handy. But when it comes to raiding, doesn't really matter. At level 45, this is where you'll decide your playstyle. You're either going to have Eternal Flame or Sacred Shield generally. I like Sacred Shield while you're learning your Paladin. While you're learning your Paladin, Sacred Shield is a wonderful little spell to get used to because, one, it gives you something to manage. You get charges, 3 charges of Sacred Shield, which means you have something to monitor and keep up with. And also, it's very, very nice for solo content in terms of solo healing content, like LFD and whatever, and challenge modes and all that kind of stuff, because you'll be able to pass this out amongst other people very easily while focusing on keeping burst healing from your holy power. If you do take Eternal Flame, of course, it's a different style of play. Again, this is dealing with more hots. Sacred Shield is an absorb shield, and Eternal Flame adds a hot to it. So we'll talk about both those playstyles in a moment, but those are your 2 choices, depending on what you're going to be doing. Both of these are suitable for raiding. Both of them are suitable playstyles for raiding. There is nothing concisive and clear about which is better, because both work out really, really well. You might be swapping them in raids, but either way will work. Level 60. It's generally Unbreakable Spirit is what you're going to take as soon as you move up to raiding. But, again, if you're doing a sort of solo healing content, your LFDs and whatever, then Clemency can be really nice. There's also a few bosses where Clemency is also very, very good. The ability to put 2 hands out there, 2 hops, 2 hands of freedom, 2 hands of sacrifice is what I particularly like, and that's what my go-to is. Hand of Sacrifice, one of the most powerful single-target cooldowns in the game. 30% damage reduction, right? 30%. That's no fucking joke. 30% less damage is pretty goddamn awesome, and having 2 charges of it can pull you out of the shit pretty damn quickly. At level 75, it's really down to the situation. If you're just learning and just getting into it, I recommend Sanctified Wrath, okay? Sanctified Wrath is very, very cool. It gives you a nice reduction in Holy Shock, which gives you more Holy Power, which allows you to do more things, and especially when you're managing things on your own, very, very nice. It tends to also be the go-to in raids. Divine Purpose is just too random. Healers don't like randomness. We are designed, and our role is to plan for what is about to happen. That is how our role works, okay? What is about to happen, how can I prepare for it? And you can't prepare for anything with Divine Purpose. Sometimes it'll be fantastic, sometimes it will be terrible. Holy Avenger, however, Holy Avenger is very, very cool. Why? Because it allows us to prepare very heavily for burst and put out tremendous burst healing, because we're going to be generating so much holy power to throw out so many things. In general, your go-to is Sanctified Wrath, however, so bear that in mind. At level 90, the general go-to is Holy Prism. Yeah, Light's Hammer is pretty weak these days, unfortunately. It is considered a minor healing cooldown, but it also has its situational uses. Again, I like to use Bracken Spores. It's more the healing-centric fight. The things like the Infesting Spores, it does provide some nice counter to Infesting Spores, whereas Holy Prism is kind of on demand and go, go, go. But in all of the content, it's generally going to be Holy Prism, casted on the boss, which is going to radiate out healing to all those other guys. Most people are used to Light's Hammer, a little bit on the weaker side now compared to Holy Prism, which is nice. A little bit of change there. Holy Prism is very cool, allows us to do some target switching, keeps the mind thinking. I like it. At level 100, it's Beacon of Faith. Yeah, these have a place, and some people argue to the death that if you're doing this specific content, let's say a challenge mode or whatever, Beacon of Faith or Saved by the Light can be better, and yeah, maybe they are, but in the general, like 90% of the time you're going to be playing your Holy Paladin, it's Beacon of Faith, okay? Get used to it. An extra beacon, firing it out on people, get it keybinded. You really want your beacons keybinded. Although you don't swap them all the time, they put a nice big cooldown on it, bastards, 3 seconds. You will be swapping it from time to time. So a good Holy Paladin is able to control his beacons and his bacons very, very easily, okay? So about Gliffies. Gliffies, you've got to take your Glyph of Hand of Sacrifice. More than likely, you're going to be taking that Hand of Sacrifice and sticking it on the tank. They're taking a lot of damage. You do not want any of that damage coming your way. That's just unnecessary. We don't want that. Glyph of Hand of Sacrifice. Glyph of Flash of Light is very, very cool. If you Flash of Light a target, increase your next heal done to that target by 10%. It's just bonus healing. And as the content gets more difficult, you move up to Mythic. Flash of Light is going to be a thing. We don't like to use Flash of Light, but if we do, it's there and it's bonus. And Glyph of Merciful Wrath, along with Avenging Wrath. Reduce the cooldown and effect of Avenging Wrath by 50%. The main thing we want from Avenging Wrath is the Holy Shot cooldown, yeah? That's the big thing we want. So by combining Sanctified Wrath, as I took in my talents, and then the Glyph of Merciful Wrath, we get a wonderful combination there of being able to be a little bit spammy, if anything, with Avenging Wrath. It has such a short cooldown, is that we can use it pretty much a minute 30. Yeah, that's pretty damn good to get the bonus out of a 30-second cooldown. Yeah, we've got a third of the fight will be under the effects of Avenging Wrath. So that is very, very cool. A lovely synergy there. Also bear in mind things like Glyph of Divine Protection. I'm thinking more like Tectus there, where the Crystal Barrage is actually physical damage. There's no magical damage there. There are several fights, especially in High Mall and moving on to Blackrock Foundry, where there is no magical damage. But there is a shit ton of physical damage that is unavoidable or you need to deal with. Therefore, that glyph can help you out that little bit. So just bear that in mind, all right? Very cool. Let's talk about stats. Critical Strike is the main thing you're going for. With any and all things in Warlords of Draenor, it's very difficult to pick and choose our stats. Whatever is our upgrade, but you'll generally be going things with Critical Strike, which means you'll be enchanting and gemming for Critical Strike, and probably taking the Spirit enchant once you can afford it for your weapon. That is generally all I'm going to say on stats from going forward with all my guides, because you just don't get to pick and choose. Get as much crit as you possibly can. You're going to have a good old day. So, playstyle. Absorbs. Let's talk about absorbs, because Holy Paladins, absorb. That's what we're about. We're about the absorby zorbies. And where does that come from? Boom. Mastery, yeah? Mastery. Illuminated healing. Your healing spells and their multi-strikes also place an absorb shield on the target for 18% of the amount healed, lasting 15 seconds. Absorbs. We can't get away from them. They're great. Why? Because no one can snipe and absorb. Simple as that. No one can out-heal and absorb. It happens first. It's as simple as that. Therefore, your more mastery is very, very cool. And Holy Paladins have a wonderful ability to stack absorbs on people. This thing stacks up very, very nicely, as you can see. So we'll start casting some Flash of Lights. And you can see the Illuminate Healing. 2,900, 7,000. Yeah, it starts stacking up. It keeps building, which means we can do things. 17,000, simple stuff. I'm going to cast a Word of Glory on top of that. And we're now up to 27,000. We can start stacking absorbs up on people. Very nice for tank target switchings. Very, very cool for things like Necrotic Breath. Again, Bracken Spore, who reduces healing by 99%. Absorb shields just don't get affected by that. Very, very awesome. And we're just placing these absorb shields out in the world. Also, Sacred Shield is very cool. That absorb is never going to be sniped. It's a wonderful buffer. We can keep it ticking on various targets. We get 3 charges. It resets very cool, very quickly, which means we can then pass it out onto 4 at least. Very, very nice. Lovely stuff. So our playstyle when we're using Sacred Shield. When we're using Sacred Shield, switches quite significantly. Sacred Shield, we want to keep that thing ticking on targets and also make sure it's 100% uptime on at least both the tanks, yeah? Both the tanks are usually tanking in WoD content. If they're not, you can be a little bit picky, but in general, they will be. So keep Sacred Shield up on them, and throw your Sacred Shield on other people. Remember, it resets very, very quickly, so you can actually keep 4 ticking relatively nicely with very little downtime. It's actually quite cool. So you got your Sacred Shield ticking. We don't have Eternal Flame, which means we can be a little bit more choosy with how we spend our holy power, yeah? We can be a little bit more choosy with that. So, in terms of Eternal Flame, we tend to never use Light of Dawn. That's not specifically true when we're using Sacred Shield playstyle. No, it's not. It actually transfers a hell of a lot of healing via the beacons. Yeah, we've got 2 beacons ticking away, and our wonderful Light of Dawn actually transfers a lot of healing to the tank via the beacons. So you'll be using way more Light of Dawns while you're using the Sacred Shield spec. Because we're not getting the bonus hot from our Word of Glory, which you would do with Eternal Flame. We're actually just going to be getting raw healing output here. We have no hot. What we have is absorbs, shields, and burst healing. So we're going to take full advantage of that by making sure that we use things like Light of Dawn far more regularly. Obviously, if no one else has taken damage or it's only a couple of people, then we're going to be using Word of Glory. That's how you're going to be spending your holy power. If we're playing Eternal Flame, we tend not to use Light of Dawn. If you are going to play the Eternal Flame playstyle, that generally means that you want Eternal Flames ticking on as many people as possible. Specifically, the tank should have 100% uptime of Eternal Flame. Very, very cool. You can feel free to refresh it before the hot runs out. And also bear in mind that a lot of people seem set in stone on having 3 power Eternal Flames all the time. That's actually going to be a mistake. 3 power Eternal Flames is obviously the best, but if you have someone taking a little bit of dot damage or anything like that, 2 and even 1 power Eternal Flames aren't the end of the world. They're not a nightmare. You're going to get the hot. You're going to be okay. You lose a little bit on the initial heal, but it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. If you've got somebody taking damage over time, feel free to throw on a 2-power Eternal Flame. Is it something that's going to last quite short? A 1-power Eternal Flame is fine as well. You can do that. But your tanks obviously want the 3 powers. 3 powers are the best and the most powerful. But bear in mind, if you're not going to get that big bursty healing at the start, you can use a weaker Eternal Flame to throw some out there. You're after the hot. The hot is really, really nice. That's what you want ticking away. So 2 different playstyles there. If you're AoE damage, if there's a lot of AoE damage with Eternal Flame spec, you just want to be firing out as many Eternal Flames as possible. Use Light of Dawn if it absolutely never, not in a million years, will overheal. Yeah, that's when you want to start using Light of Dawn, is if you don't get overheal. But again, with Sacred Shield, we use Light of Dawn far more readily. We'll demonstrate that more in the gameplay. The last thing I want to leave you with a Holy Paladin, those are the basics of how you play it, using your Holy Shock to generate Holy Power. Some people will ask me about Crusader Strike. I'm sure you'll read many guides that actually have, you should use Crusader Strike. It's too expensive. Let's talk about that. It's too damn expensive. That's just not what's happening in the game right now. It seems like, yeah, you can generate more holy power and do more healing, but you're going to be way quicker. And the same actually goes for Holy Radiance. It's considered actually a big no-no. The skill of the Holy Paladin, as with every healer, will come from managing your beacons, making sure your beacons are on the right targets and that healing is not going to waste because it's a lot of healing, and predicting what the fight is going to do. You have big cooldowns like Devotion Aura. You have big cooldowns like Hand of Sacrifice. A lot of being a good healer is looking at what's about to happen and not responding. You need to be preemptive. You need to be planning ahead. Responsive healing is pretty lackluster. Because if someone's preemptively getting ready for that, they've already beaten you to the punch and dealt with that situation. You are therefore picking up scraps, and people would rather bring another healer who's also being preemptive, which makes things so much smoother and so much easier. Responsive healing in Warlords of Draenor. Let's say you're doing Imperator. Someone stands in that mine, and then that's not planned for, or the healers didn't see it coming. You will notice so quickly that your healers start running out of mana and start falling behind. If someone causes a problem that's causing a lot of damage, your healers are going to struggle endlessly. The game is designed around the idea that you're not going to die straight away, and DPS is not going to die immediately. They will take some damage, but it can be healed up, and that's why it's a teamwork effort to make sure that's done efficiently and without spamming mana. When you see people getting AoE'd, you're very tempted to throw things out like a lot of Holy Radiance. It's like, oh my god, people are getting AoE'd. I need to Holy Radiance really fast and spam out Light of Dawn and all this kind of stuff. And you will notice that you're just like running out of mana with like 10 seconds into the fight, and it's an absolute nightmare. What the hell's going on? How can we possibly deal with this situation going forward? The idea is that you shouldn't be doing that. You should be playing the way you are best. You should be throwing out your Sacred Shields, you should be generating your Holy Power, and you should be casting your Light of Dawns, and then you should be just continually playing what makes your class efficient and well played. Look, I used hardly any mana doing that, while still trying to recover from the fact that I casted 3 or 4 Holy Radiances. Yeah? That's what's going to screw you up. If you're running out of mana in basic raids and all that kind of stuff, you're probably using spells that, frankly, you shouldn't be using, like Crusader Strike and Holy Radiance. You should try and avoid them at all costs. You can't always do it. There is nothing ever set in stone with healers. Ever. I can't say, take Holy Radiance off your bars, because you can't do that. You don't know what situation you're going to run into. Last thing I want to leave you with, guys, about the Holy Paladin. Fucking Dispel! Cleanse! It's amazing! Yeah? This is going to really show the men from the boys. God, we run into so many healers who don't Dispel all the time. And good players will just be like, dude, I don't get it. Don't be that guy. Remember your Holy Radiance. Remember your Cleanse. Sorry. Remember your Cleanse. That's the basics. Let's jump into some gameplay and see all this in action. All right, guys? Bye-bye.